Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, I will be describing a very beautiful scarf model that is incredibly easy to make. It is such a beautiful model that you can prepare it for children if you want. Gentlemen and ladies, it is a model suitable for all ages. I want to show you the model closely right away. I put the scarf on my mannequin in order to show it to you more comfortably. I want to show you the model right away. Look, the plain part of the model is here. The reverse part looks like this. I want to show you like this. I put one side plain and the other side reverse so that both sides are like this. Let me show you. Look, after knitting, as I also mentioned in the video, I ironed it with steam. It released itself like this. The casting had such a beautiful texture as if it was a ready-made knitwear. You can make very beautiful gift scarves with this. Really, the model turned out very nice. It really went well with this yarn. Again, when I take the yarn out of the way, I am sharing it with you in the video. It was really a wonderful study. It is a very easy example. It is also a fast-growing study. In other words, you do not know how to knit. If you only know one knit and one purl, you can do this study very easily. It is incredibly easy. As I said, you can use it in many ways. I shared the measurements with you again. It was a wonderful project. I hope you like it and try it. Before moving on to our detailed recipe, I would like to make a small request from you. You can subscribe to our channel for free if you like the video, and do not forget to leave your comments. I would be very happy. Let's move on to our recipe. I obtained the yarns I used for my scarf from Aksa Orgu Boutique. I will add the contact information to the description of the video. I used 100-gram yarns, the content of which is day. 2 balls were enough for this work. With 2 balls, I obtained a scarf that is 25 centimeters wide and 192 centimeters long. After knitting the scarf, look, normally the yarn is a fluffy yarn. After we ironed it with a steam iron, look, a very beautiful texture was formed. It was like a cast-on, that is a knitwear ready work. We also stretch it a little with a steam iron. I want to share this information. If you do not iron it, the measurement may be a little smaller. It is useful to say this at the beginning. Look, this yarn has many different color options. You can contact Aksa Orgu Boutique and look at different color options. You see a beautiful dark gray color here. It is really beautiful. Now I will describe the model to you using the same yarn with a lighter color. The needle number I used here is 6 millimeters. You can determine your own needle number according to the thinness and thickness of your yarn, the tightness and looseness of your knitting. Now I will describe the model to you in a small part. It is a very easy knit, consisting of only 1 knit and 1 purl. Those who know how to knit and purl can do it very easily. But if there are beginners among us, I am sure they can do it very easily too. Now I am leaving some short yarn here. Look. I had left longer yarn for my scarf. Now I will describe a small example, so I have to leave this much yarn. If there are beginners among us, if you do not know how to cast on a needle, if you do not know knit or purl, if you have a very detailed video that I shared on needle knitting for beginners, if you write that video in the comments, I will share it. I will definitely add the link to the description section of the video. Now here, look, I am creating my first stitch by crossing the yarn and passing it through it. You may have different methods. Needle stitches are cast on in many different ways. You can use whichever method is easiest for you. Now I have created my first stitch and I'm creating my stitches like this. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's cast on 12 like this. Now when you create your stitches in this model, your number must be multiples of 2. You need to create your stitches in the form of 2 plus 2 plus. Now, you may be knitting with your hand here, you may be knitting by putting the yarn around your neck, you may be knitting with your arm. Your knitting method does not matter. If you know how to knit and purl, you will be able to do this work easily. Now I immediately take my other needle and start knitting. Look, I always take the first stitch without knitting with the yarn in front. I transferred my right needle. Now I take the yarn to the back and knit the next stitch straight. Look, this is how I do it. I took a loop from inside the loop and knitted it like this and knitted it. I left the loop. After removing the loop from inside the loop, we leave it. I knitted 1 knit. Now I will knit the next loop purl. I took the yarn to the front. Look, now I knit purl, I insert the loop into the loop like this and remove the loop from it. We do plain and purl knitting like this. I knit the next one plain, I knit the next one purl. That is, we proceed in the form of a classic rib knit. Look, plain loops, and look, it looks like this. As for the purl loops, let's knit one purl right away. It looks like a broken line. Look, a plain loop looks like a V shape, a purl loop looks like a broken line. It is useful to tell these details for beginners. Those who know how to knit will go through these parts quickly anyway. Now look, I purled the penultimate loop. I always knit the last loop plain. I completed my first row by knitting the last stitch plainly. I'm turning it now. Look, the yarn is in front again. I'm taking the first stitch without knitting it again. By the way, be careful not to take too loosely when taking the first stitches. If you take too loosely, these will be too wide. I transferred my right needle without knitting the first stitch and immediately took the yarn to the back. Now we are in this plain row. In the plain row, that is, in the row that appears. Look, we will knit them all plain. This pattern is plain in one row. It goes in the form of one purl, one purl, one purl, one purl. I transferred the first stitch without knitting it and I knit the next stitch plain. I knit the next one again plain. Look, my yarn is always at the back. I knit all the stitches plain like this. At this stage, if you think I am knitting too fast, you can slow down the video or speed it up. I knitted completely plain. Look, I'm coming to the end of the row. I knitted the last stitch plain. Look, we've completed the straight. I'm turning it. Again, I transfer the first stitch to the right needle without knitting it. Look, the yarn is in front. Then I take the yarn to the back. One knit and one purl. Just like we started with one knit and one purl. We started with one knit and one purl. When we first started, we continued with one knit and one purl. And we will always apply this. We start with one knit and one purl. One purl, one knit, one purl. Now we will come to the end of the row. It is a really easy pattern, a pattern that can be used on both sides. I knitted the reverse, I knit the last stitch plain, and I completed my row. Look, this is the purl part, this is the plain part. I turned it. Again, without knitting the first stitch, I transferred it to my right needle. I took the yarn to the back. Now we will knit each one straight in this order. Look, I'm starting with a straight stitch right away. I'm knitting them all straight. I knit completely flat. A very enjoyable example, especially for beginners who only know knit and purl if you want to work something different and also a quick finished work. Look at it, I knitted everything, knit again. I am moving on to the next row. I transferred the first stitch to the right needle without knitting again. Look, we started knit first. We always start knit first, knit next, purl. Now it will appear when the model grows a little. I want to tell you one more detail here. I continue until the end of the row in the form of one knit, one purl. The model consists of 2 rows. We start right away. We enlarge our knitting in this way by knitting one knit, one purl, and then one row knit. Look. This is what it looks like from the front. Now, since my needle is small, I can't open it very much. Let me show you like this. Look at the flat side. The reverse side. The back looks like rice knitting. I just took the first stitch without knitting it. I'm starting. I'm on this flat surface. I'm knitting them all flat. Look, at the point where you're flat, if you mix the reverse flat, look at the point where the short yarn is. When the short yarn is on the left, we always knit straight. You can also make markings like this. Or if you mix the reverse of the straight, if you tie a safety pin or a colored yarn in the order, you will knit straight. When you see the yarn, you will always knit that row straight. I am saying these for beginners. These are not necessary for those who know how to knit. Now look, here we are again. When we look at it like this, if you forget when you take a break from knitting, for example, I started the knit and started the purl. When you look at it like this, the stitches after the first stitch are always plain underneath. Look, after the purl it looks plain in between. The knitting in between looks completely reversed. Look, it always looks like a broken line. There is no V. The stitch where we see a V is our plain stitch. In other words, we took the first stitch without knitting it. The next one will be plain. We will have progressed in the form of plain purl, plain purl. Now let's complete this row. Look, one plain, one purl, one plain, one purl. It's a really easy example. I hope it was explanatory. As I said, the model consists of 2 rows. We start with one plain, one purl. We knit 1 row plain and our model is created. Can you see? It's a really nice example. Of course, after steaming it, it opens up better. I want to show it right away. Look, the knitting has become like knitwear. In other words, it has become like the scarves sold in stores. I want to show the backside right away. The backside looks like this. The edges are also quite neat. Look, it looks like spikes. Now, when I knit this, there are curls on the edges. In other words, it curls inward like this. Don't let this scare you. When we give it a steam iron, this will open up. In other words, when you start knitting, your scarf may curl inward like this. This is not a problem. We open it with a steam iron and fix it. As I said, you can easily use it with a steam iron. If it curls again after washing, use the steam iron again. If you open the edge part and look, the cast on is so beautiful that both ladies and gentlemen can use it. You can prepare this scarf for children with many colors. It is a very beautiful model, suitable for all ages. It is also nice that it is double-sided. Now I want to show you how to close it. Let's complete this row immediately. I finished the plain row. Look, let's knit our plain stitches immediately. Now I'm making a crochet stitch. You can use any stitch method you want. Just like this, I knitted all the stitches straight and finished. Look, I finished my scarf exactly like this. Until 2 balls are finished, I extended it. After 2 balls, I moved on to closing. Now let's leave it like this. I took my hook. I am using a 5.5 mm hook. Let's move on to closing immediately. I transferred the hook on the right again without knitting the first stitch. Now we were knitting the first stitch plain. I immediately take the yarn to the back. We are in the reverse row where we knit a normal knit and a reverse. I immediately knit a plain stitch in my hand as if I had the same needle with a normal hook. Look, I knitted the plain stitch, I left it here. I passed the stitch I knitted through the waiting stitch here. I am closing like this. I knitted plain. See, I am using the reverse stitch like a crochet hook. I am knitting purl. After knitting the stitch, I pass it through the waiting stitch. I am knitting the next one plain. See, I am using it like a normal crochet hook. I knitted plain. I passed the stitch I knitted through the waiting stitch. Now I am knitting purl. I passed the stitch I knitted through the waiting stitch and now I knit straight. Look, I took it easier with the crochet hook and passed it through. Straight, I'm proceeding in reverse. Let me look this way so I don't make a mistake. After reverse, straight. Ters. Straight. I knitted the reverse, knit the last stitch plain. I knit normally. After taking the stitch, I pass it through the stitch here. Then I pull a chain and break my yarn. Look, I finished it like this. The finish is also very nice. It really is a great model. A sample that you can use on both sides. As I said, I ironed it with a steam iron while working with this yarn. Also look, the knitting opened up like this and let go. It turned out very nice. In other words, this texture was the texture I wanted. In other words, I wanted a ready-made texture. It really turned out incredibly nice. I definitely recommend you try it. The model looks really nice. I hope you like it and try it too. Look, it is a great sample on both sides. Our recipe was like this. I also told you our measurement. I wish ease to those who will do it with you. Don't forget to like our video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. Goodbye until we see each other in the next video.